Joining us now are Newsmax contributors Joe DeGeneva and Victoria Tensing, along with distinguished professor at Troy University, Thane Rosenbaum, and Project 21 volunteer and political analyst Whitley Yates. Full house this afternoon. Victoria, your reaction first to Powell's plea deal and her agreeing to testify against the other co-defendants.
Well, I don't know what she's going to testify to because she was the one that was most adamant that there was a problem with the election. I have several observations about this, the indictment against Sidney Powell. Prosecutors should not indict lawyers for legal counsel for conduct that is not clearly criminal. She didn't tell him to go rob a bank, for God's sake. Secondly, I was a federal prosecutor, 7 felony counts, and now it's okay to plead guilty to 6 misdemeanors. It shows that Fani Willis, again, was unethical in going after Sidney Powell. She overcharged, and she did all of this to break the attorney-client privilege. And third, there was a lot wrong with that election, mainly that Governor Kemp agreed with Stacey Abrams to an unconstitutional and illegal deal to mail out ballots to everyone on the voter registration list, which everyone knows is corrupt, and then they could be returned in unsecured ballot boxes. You notice he didn't do that when he was running for governor in 2022.
Thane, I want to get your thoughts on this. Another co-defendant in that 2020 Georgia election interference case, attorney Kenneth Chesbrough, he also took a plea deal and, like Powell, has agreed to testify against his co-defendants. Your thoughts about this? As we see these other co-defendants making these agreements, there was also a bail bondsman who did the same. Is this amounting to lawfare, essentially to coerce testimony? It kind of explained the dynamic here of what we're seeing.
Well, Nina, one thing is that he's pleading guilty to a felony, remember, and it's not misdemeanors. And this is, to me, a little more serious for the president. I'll tell you why. It's not just because it's a felony, it's because it's this idea of false documents. One of the main theories of this RICO organized racketeering scheme is that all over the country, this fake elector strategy was being engineered by Chesbrough himself. So a huge part of this case is that Donald Trump, it's not just denied the election results, that he and his team actively tried to substitute their list of electoral voters from Georgia for the other one. And I think that if you look at the indictment, the prosecuting attorney is really relying on this. So to me, this is a little more serious because if he does testify, you know, again, he can always say, this is the advice I gave the president and I was his lawyer, and he just took it. But in this case, Chesbrough, I think, wasn't exactly his lawyer per se, but he is the one that may have been the architect of the alternate fake elector scheme. And I think this, to me, is much more serious. That's something that Donald Trump should be concerned about than the Sidney Powell plea deal.
And Whitley, final word here. We heard former President Trump speaking in New Hampshire briefly earlier, and he described all of his indictments as something coming from Joe Biden as dirty politics. Your thoughts?
You know, I think it's interesting what's happening is as you continue to see indictment after indictment, and then you see all of these different co-defendants, what they're literally doing is they're turning one person against each other in hopes that one of them will flip on the other, and then that will substantiate the case. I think right now there are so many things that we could be worrying about in America besides all of these trumped up charges.
Trumped up charges. I see what you did there. Joe DeGeneva, I was kidding. You get the last word. Your thoughts on all of this. Great points from everyone. What is standing out to you here?
Obviously, Fani Willis purposely overcharged in order to extort guilty pleas. By the way, this alternate elector theory is perfectly legitimate. It was used by John Kennedy in Hawaii in 1960. In order to, litigation may not be resolved by the time the election is over. And so what you need to do is have an alternative set of electors so that if you win your litigation, you have electors who are legally in place. They're not fake electors, they're alternate electors. The law permits this, and again, it was used by John Kennedy. By the way, both Mr. Chesbrough and Sidney Powell have not agreed to testify against anybody. They have agreed to give truthful testimony. Nobody knows what that so-called truthful testimony is. but it's pretty clear that Fani Willis is dying to get guilty pleas because the case that she brought, the one with RICO, is a piece of garbage legally and constitutionally.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Great analysis from everyone here. Victoria Tensing, Joe DeGeneva, Thane Rosenbaum. Always great to see all three of you.